Hey everyone, welcome to Dave's Bonsai. On today's show, another April storm. Hey everyone, welcome to Dave's Bonsai. In the sense that I have a branch that splits into two shoots in here, so I'm probably going to cut this thing off right about here this fall. I've taken my knob cutter and I've gotten rid of some of that. So I just put them on the bottom, growing upwards into the bag. We fill it up with trees and then we water as we need to. We try to get rid of those air pockets. Go up the creek. So isn't that a load of fun? I had all my trees on the benches just days ago, ones that could be on the bench anyway. Let's show you a recap of that. So on today's show, I figured I'd do something that I would like to do a little later in the year when things get more bushed out and grown, but I thought I would do just a short little update show. While it's snowing outside and we've got this distance learning, we're stuck in the house, another April storm. 3 years in a row, by the way, for those who don't live in Minnesota. That's kind of a pattern. Yeah, I'm not sure I'm liking it. So let's do a little update on some of the transplants or the pots I've made, the things I've done in the last 6 months to a year. We'll see if we can get any updates to show a little before and after, at least some growth and some change. Because, you know, I want to provide something for you guys to look at, especially if you're in Minnesota and having to deal with the white stuff. I've nearly run out of battery from my camera, so therefore I can't show everything that I'm going to do here, but one final shot before it possibly goes blank. There's the 6 trees just taken out of the pots and put it in there. I just want to pull one of them up here and show you all those roots that have been growing since I even put it in the newer pot. That's all growth from like about there down. Sorry for the blurriness. So there you go. So I'm not going to cut anything. I'm just going to put them in. They'll stand up real nicely. Don't need any wires with these trees. I'm going to find something that's pleasing to my eye, put them in place, and we'll maybe have some video enough to show you a final product. Well, there we go. I think we have 11 in there. A little bit of everything. Got a couple little ones in the back. Some of those didn't have a lot of big roots on them. This little one up here, my variegated ficus, had some nice roots on there for being such a short time. But we're just putting them back into some soil, keeping them watered. A lot of moisture in my room because of the fish tank. Hopefully it'll do well. Now I have to figure out the light configuration, but for right now, I think we'll stop right there for the end of part one, or we'll see if we can get a couple more shots here done before the end of this take. So here's a current image of the fish tank. And I've moved some things around. I got two just houseplants in the back to kind of beef things up. And I've moved around some of the front plants. I have a Christmas cactus that I've fixed up and tried to put in a couple different pots because it wasn't doing well in its normal pot as a houseplant. And since I've had luck with my bonsai, I made a couple more Christmas cactus bonsais. And they're growing. I got some new growth on there. Got some nice growth right here. Got some growth up here and here. Everything's looking good there. And then here's the forest. Here's a close-up of the forest. If you look real close in there, got an elephant back in there. Zoom on him. Zoom on here. And so what was really open and small and tiny, it's got the beginnings of a forest. Got some rocks in there now. And that's only been a few months. One of my favorite projects I did in the last few months was this old log from the cabin that I repurposed into a bonsai pot. And I put two cuttings from my ficuses. One ficus that I had growing, this guy right here, and then the two cuttings down there. I've already trimmed the ficus on the right. This watermelon seed ficus, I've already cut back a little bit because it was getting pretty thick. So this is one angle of it. Got a little moss from a different pot to add a little moss around the big tree. This is technically the front. You were looking at the back, but I twist my plants around in the plant room to make sure that we're getting good light all the way around. And so I've snipped a few little branches off the here overall, and these little guys have sprouted some nice new leaves. This is the brush cherry ficus tree. A lot of new growth there since it was first put in there. And as I always say, just fun to experiment. You never know what you're going to get. And it's small, they're little. I'm sure the roots in there are going crazy. And after this summer, just watching this, we'll see what happens when we repot it and change things around and maybe put those into individual pots. But so far, success, everything's alive, and love and life in the plant room. And this one's in a great big pot I got at the auction last year through the Minnesota Bonsai Society. Actually, a former member, young guy who was heading off to Australia, sold a few things at the auction, and this one didn't sell, so he donated it to me, said I could take care of it for him and see what could happen with the tree. So we're going to go ahead and repot that thing. We got the Quince inside the plant room, so now we have to take a peek at it and get into that soil and see what's going on with the roots and pick a pot for it. And we're going to see what it's all about, what it's got going on. Again, this is a Japanese quince, and it's been out of the cold frame now for a couple of hours. So I want to see if I can pull this guy right here. If I have a root system here with roots from this tree, I can find, or this leader, if I can find where it's connected and just cut it off, I'm sure I could have success. This one seems a little bit more attached right now. I don't want to mess with that one, but I am going to try to get this one free first. But I would have to cut that off anyway. So there we have it. Look at that movement, huh? Now I've got this, what would be considered an aerial root back here, if this was the soil down here. And I have this very, very gnarly looking trunk right out of the get-go here with plenty of roots down here. Look at that, to support myself. All right. So I either leave this on and put the soil line there, or I take this off and start the tree below there. And I think I'm going to do that. I don't think this tree will work well with a root like that. So now I can set this off to the side and put that in another pot, and I have another tree. A very, very interesting growing tree that is going to grow up to the sun now after this interesting birth. All right, so trim that off, trim this little guy off, and we'll get that into some new soil in a little bit. So here's the tree I'm trying to release, with a nice little pocket of roots down here and a lot of neat movement. And it's just hanging on, so I've got a little wood carving tool here. I'm trying to not destroy too much of the roots around it, but still be able to kind of separate it with this sharp edge. Look at that. I was able to stick the scissors right in there. And I have half of the trunk just fine, and I have half of the trunk that has a little bit of a little damage right there. But for me, that's totally worth the risk. I'm going to see if this will grow as a tree. I'm going to put this in some soil, and we'll get that growing. So in one of the videos in the past, if you go back and look at the archives, I repotted a Japanese quince. Big quince that was kind of messy, multiple trunk on the bottom, and I had pulled apart two of the growing trees from the root structure and put them into a pot to grow. And since then, I've got the real nice curly one here that's come out to here, and I've already cut a couple back because they were just growing so long and leggy with the limited light in here. Good light, but not the sun, so it wants to grow super long, as you can see right here. So this new root that I put in the ground has all of a sudden two long skinny shoots growing right there. So that could be future trees, or it'll just make this tree a multi-trunk tree. We're just going to keep it growing so all the nutrients and all the flow, it just keeps going. And then the back stalk goes up, kind of curves around there. Look at this growth back here. It's bending over backwards, a good foot long or so. This one's been trimmed once. I already cut it back a little bit, and it's starting to grow again here, new stuff. And this is the longest one that's already been cut again once, and then it's continued to grow. So super long, almost that thing's 2 feet off the ground now from here up, almost 2 feet tall. So remember though, when I bring these outside, I gotta bring them out slowly. These are trees that will be out when I feel I can get a nice consistent warm temperature outside. With these young branches, all of this, none of this has really hardened off yet, so we're gonna have to introduce this back out into the outside very, very slowly. And since we're talking quince, my other quince has really started to leaf out, and as you can see, I got a bud up there and a bud down here again, so it's budded out again. Got another one down here somewhere that wants to come on out, but so this one is growing super, super long right there. Look at that long growth right there. And that's just going to keep growing thicker and thicker. So that's the other quince that we showed earlier in the season. So everything doing well here with the quince. I also talked about cuttings, and I put a whole bunch of cuttings into this tray, and I've added some from the first video. We have some juniper in the back, Sabian. This right here, I have to look up what these were in the front. Another one of my junipers. I got the larch from the backyard and made just a couple of spring trims. Pruned it up just a little bit, and as you can see, right now we have, new shoots coming out, so we're alive. We got boxwood back there. They're still green, love and life as far as we know it. And I got a couple of the Ficus again, because I'm always just futzing with some Ficuses so I can keep a lot of plants in my plant room year round. All the junipers seem to be really the junipers are having the most difficulty. I've never done a juniper before. This one was cutting from the repot I did earlier in the spring repot season here, and a lot of dryness to these. Some of the needles are falling off. There's still some that are pretty original green from the color when I put them in there. We'll see if some take and see if some don't. The ones in the front are also a little dry. Learning as we go. That is the cuttings update. Here's a quick update on the Fukien tea, and since I've trimmed this, there has been no growth as far as length of any branches. A lot of leaves have fallen off, some leaves have gotten bigger. I got some new green growth on there, but just leaves on the existing branches. Let me turn this around and show you something real quick. Made a fresh cut right here. This was growing up and there was 2 branches up there, and they both just died off. Completely lost all its branches. So there's pruning by, not my choice, but by dieback. Sometimes dieback makes the decision for you, and it's not always a bad thing. So we'll figure out how this thing is going to style. I'll get this thing outside when we know the lows aren't going to be below 50, and we'll see if this grows like crazy again later in the summer like it did last year. So that's the Fukien tea update. Well, that wraps it up, everybody. A couple of follow-up before and after kind of shots. Some of the projects that have been worked on in the last few months. I hope you enjoyed. It's a lot better than watching snow outside. Thanks for watching. For Dave's Bonsai, I'm Dave Weiss, and stay safe, everybody. We'll catch you on the next video. Hey, everyone. Welcome to Dave's Bonsai. In the sense that I have a branch that splits into 2 shoots in here, so I'm probably going to cut this thing off right about here this fall. I've taken my knob cutter and I've gotten rid of some of that. So I just put them on the bottom, growing upwards into the bag. We fill it up with trees and then we water as we need to.